This episode is brought to you by Home Plate Peanut Butter. If you're a fan of peanut butter like me, you're going to love Home Plate Peanut Butter. It's all natural, zero preservatives, no high fructose corn syrup, no hydrogenated oils, non-GMO, gluten-free, and it tastes amazing. So if you want all the wholesome benefits of peanut butter like me and not all the junk, then go to homeplatepb.com. That's homeplatepb.com and give it a try. Folks, it comes in 3 amazing flavors: crunchy, honey, and my favorite, good old creamy. There's no goopy oil layer, no chalky texture, just wholesome, all natural, great tasting peanut butter. Go to homeplatepb.com. That's homeplatepb.com. All right. Well, welcome to another edition of the Alden Report. My name is Michael Alden. We are here in Blue Vase Studios, and again, every time I think about my next guest, I always say to myself, I say I'm not going to say that I'm excited, but I always am excited. I think I'm always going to say this because I really love talking to people like the next gentleman that I have on. His name is Clint Greenleaf. He is the founder of a publishing company called Greenleaf Publishing, who happens to also be the publisher of my book, Ask More, Get More. He's an entrepreneur. He's a speaker. He's a father. He's got several businesses. He just launched a peanut butter company a little bit while ago. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's an interesting story. And again, folks, if you're interested in business, if you want to learn how to grow a business, if you want to learn how to really kind of navigate the business world and take a product from concept to reality, take a company from zero to being ranked as an Inc. 500 company, and then an Inc. 5000 company for years, growing it out, becoming one of the most innovative publishing companies in the United States. And then taking just any business and showing you how to grow it. My next guest, Clint, is really the guy. Clint, thanks for being my guest.
Oh, you bet. Happy to be here.
So, Clint, did you get a list of the questions? Sometimes we forget to send you the questions.
No, I did get them. Yes, thanks
right,
for
good.
sending them. And it's
right.
I don't usually get them, so it's great. I'm not as surprised now.
All right, wonderful. So what we do is we like to ask the same questions to everybody. There are 10 questions. From there, we kind of ad lib a little bit. I'll probably go off script a little bit based off of what you say, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right, wonderful. So the first question I like to ask, business people like yourself, some, people that have taken, again, nothing and grown it out to, like a large company like Greenleaf, and now your latest company, Home Plate Peanut Butter. How do you define success?
So I think my definition probably mirrors some of the people you're talking to here. For me, it really comes down to freedom. For me, success is a waypoint, not really a destination, but it's kind of a stop along the way. The average airline pilot changes direction and course a couple hundred times in a couple hour flight. And so for me, it's a constant check back. I want to know that I'm being free. I want to know that I'm finding that happiness for me. So it's making money, of course, but it's having time to be able to be a dad and be able to be a good husband. And it's doing things I like. It's going to baseball games and finding a business that kind of incorporates my love of food and sports in one. It was back in the day, when I left the Marines, went into accounting, then went into book publishing, and then, of course, peanut butter next. It's not really a linear path, but for me, it's the enjoyment factor of it, and then the freedom to be able to do what I want when I want.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of with you on that one. I tell people, everyone's the reason why I ask it is because I think a lot of people's definition of success is different. But I'm kind of aligned with what yours is. It's not necessarily about making tons of money and having everything, but it is about the freedom aspect of it. There is a financial side to that, but I tell people, I can do what I want when I want, and that's for me is success, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I went to school not too far from where you are up in Holy Cross. And
you did? I didn't
most
realize
of my
that.
friends. Yeah. So most of my friends are really good, productive members of society. They hold down jobs and they go to work for 40 hours a week, and they do a lot of those things that dutifully, and they were way better students than I was, obviously. But for me, my definition of success would never be able to fit in that mold. I was a CPA at Deloitte for a solid 7 months before I got bored out of my mind and retired at 22. It was just a much better plan for me because the typical success model, you work really hard as a staff accountant for 12 years, then maybe you make partner, and then you double your efforts and work twice as hard and never see your kids. That wasn't really successful to me. I thought, God, I don't want to win that game that way. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so from there, really, I think kind of what you're talking about is you really weren't passionate. Unfortunately, you figured out when it was too late after going through all that schooling. But it sounds like you probably weren't that passionate really about the whole accounting side of things, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, accounting was kind of a means to an end. There weren't a whole lot of business choices. It was a way to get, the basic underlying fundamentals of business. But I wasn't a very good one, to be honest. I mean, I passed the CPA exam eventually, but it wasn't something that I walked away saying, boy, this is my life's calling at all.
Well, I think you're being a little bit modest. They say, I think, I'm also an attorney by trade, but they say it's a toss up between the hardest exams out there is the CPA exam and also maybe the bar exam. But from what I've heard about, I have friends that are accountants. That CPA exam is no easy task. So you have to be pretty smart to at least get past that.
Well, if you take it enough times, you eventually figure it out. I don't want to exactly admit the number of times, but let's just say it was more than several.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I've heard that as well. But you know what? It's funny when I missed the bar exam by one question, and someone said to me, they said, "Mike, JFK Jr. He missed the bar exam 5 times," and I'm like, well, that doesn't make me feel any better.
Right.
I still didn't pass, but yeah, you know what? You're right. It does take a couple tries at it. So that leads me to maybe the next question. In business, sometimes people kind of they change it around on me, but I'm going to ask you really in business. You can answer it however you want. But what has been really your biggest professional obstacle, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think in most cases it's a lack of knowledge as far as an obstacle goes. I mean, when I got into accounting, I had been in Marine ROTC and I didn't really know that much about it. And so I didn't take the classes all that seriously. And I probably got the job because I tied my tie and shined my shoes properly, but I didn't really know that much about the basics of it. So compared to my peers who, were scoring in the 90s on the CPA exam the first try, they were better than I was. When I got into publishing, I was a former Marine, former accountant who really knew nothing about publishing and had written one book and fought a lot of energy that was, pounced against me when you have the people with experience in the space. And now with peanut butter, same thing. Biggest obstacle is not really knowing that much about the food space, about distribution in this grocery world. And I think in general, I find a certain happiness in that space. I guess they say, you prep in high school and college, you'll do the rest of your time in your life. For me, that prepping was in not really prepping that much. It was in not really studying that much and then going and taking a test and trying to the classes. And I think that really kind of prepared me for the way that I like to operate. So the biggest obstacle I've got, and I would continue saying it's still the same way for me now, is not necessarily knowing as much as I should know. But that usually kind of sparks inside me this desire to catch up as quickly as possible. So after I put forth some effort, I can usually get around it, but it kind of gets me excited enough to learn.
That's interesting that you say, because when I think about business, I started a business years ago in the distilled spirits world, and similar to you, maybe with the peanut butter world, even the publishing world, I knew nothing about it. But true entrepreneurs like yourself and business people, just because you didn't know it didn't prevent you from still wanting to do it, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you go back to dating, right, like you don't necessarily have to know how it all works to decide it's something you want to go out and do. For me, same thing. I wanted to have a food company. I figured people have been able to do this for years. I want to go out and make this happen. And I think that desire to make something work can overcome a whole lot if you're really truly passionate about what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So again, for those of you that are listening, we are talking to Clint Greenleaf. You can learn more about him at clintgreenleaf.com. He's an author. He's a business person. He's an entrepreneur. He's a speaker. He's a dad. He's a husband. Former Marine. He's written what you've written. I think he's written 4 books, and 2 of them are children's books. We'll talk about that, which I think is pretty awesome. So again, if you'd like some more about Clint Greenleaf, you can go to clintgreenleaf.com. You can just Google him. He's out there. He's been doing things for a little while. Now, I think I can't wait to hear you answer to this next question, but is traditional education, higher education, important for business success? Now, again, before you answer that, you're a CPA, so you've obviously you've been through a lot of schooling. Then you have to take these additional boards, so to speak, to even become a CPA, and then I think even from there, I think you have to have like some sort of apprenticeship for several years before you even really make it in. So is all that stuff important for business success?
That's a tough one because there are certainly some people who have done great work with that pedigree and that history. And I think it really depends on the individual. I've seen a whole lot of people who are, by all accounts, book novices, and they're not exactly experts in their field through the schooling that went into it. And yet they are awesomely huge, successful people. In some cases, too, like if you're talking about medicine, for example, obviously this is a lot more important. if you're doing chemical engineering, I would really hope you have a lot of good schooling, because a couple mistakes with the wrong chemicals and you've got a real problem on your hands.
Right.
But for entrepreneurs and people who are kind of in the more, blue collar side of business, I would say, I'm more than happy to say that I don't think it's really that critical. I think that in college, the lessons that I learned were people skills. And I could have probably learned that in other places. I wouldn't change a single thing that I've done, but I don't think that the push and the drive to send people to college is as important as a lot of people perceive it, especially when they're going and getting a degree in anthropology or something that's probably not as meaningful or not as translatable in the money. And then they've got a big debt. Now it's what, $60,000 a year for kids to go to school. And you leave with a job that's going to pay you $30,000 a year. It's really hard to pay that back, let alone to start going out and earning and doing something valuable. So my favorite answer as an accountant, as a lawyer too, is it depends, because it usually hedges you pretty well no matter what the right answer is. Yeah. But I would say that a whole lot less valuable than most people give it credit for, the traditional schooling.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have an attorney that works for me, and I say to him, and sometimes it blows up in my face. I always say, always give yourself an out, no matter what you say.
Right. It's great for politics too, right? I generally believe this all the time, unless I don't.
Right. Exactly. Right. As of now, I believe in this, but maybe not tomorrow. Right. That's funny. So again, we're talking with Clint Greenleaf. Clint has started businesses. He's got a couple different products. I think his big one right now is called Home Plate Peanut Butter. So this might tie into the next question. Right now, kind of what you're doing in your business life as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an author, speaker. In the business that you're focusing on right now, what is the most effective form of marketing? And I ask that question because, my company is called Blue Vase Marketing, and every day we come in and there's something new. There's a new platform. There's a new medium. I think Amazon just came out with this new way to market books. I don't know if you saw that recently. So there's all these different things that are out there. What are you doing right now to effectively market your products?
So on a big global side, I've always kind of subscribed to the model that if you give first, you'll be able to get a lot more in the back end. So I like the idea of giving either knowledge or experiences or the samples of what I can do. And in peanut butter, it's pretty easy because our peanut butter tastes really, really good. It's all natural and it doesn't separate and get all gross. So I can get people samples of it and usually sell product right after they try it. Right. That makes it really easy for me. And I think all the time that I've seen this not work is when people say, no, if I give it away, then people won't buy it. I think that's a misnomer for almost every product. I think generally people say, let me try something, let me get a feel for who you are and how this all works, and then I will go out and test it out. So if you have a knowledge-based business, like a marketing firm, there's probably a lot of good ways that you can go out and test it, give people some samples of the kind of work that you can do. And then it's not a buying decision. It's just a matter of how quickly can they get you onboarded into their system. It doesn't take long after someone tries peanut butter to say, I want that in my shelf. But if I try and explain to them I'm better than the competition out there before they try it, it's a pretty tough sale to make.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Get it in their hands, and like you said, if you have a great product, like your product. By the way, I'd love to sample it. It's in the very near future. So I'm a peanut butter fan myself. So let me just ask you this question. You're an author, you're a speaker. You started this publishing company. You're a CPA. How do you get involved in a peanut butter company? But then the other question I have is, how do you get all these professional baseball players, which, by the way, are a couple famous Red Sox players here that won the World Series? How do you get these guys involved, and how do you start a peanut butter? I mean, I read the story, but tell me a little bit more about it. It's got to be interesting.
Yeah, it's a little unnatural, I suppose, to have all these different bounces. But for me, I think passion is really important. So it's got to be something I care about. And growing up for me, and I think before I realized how much I really enjoyed dating and girls, I was really excited about baseball. And I knew, the backup shortstop for every major league team in the late 80s. So I was pretty involved in that space and got to still have been able to follow baseball for most of my adult life now. So during the process of selling my publishing company, I had a little bit of free time, and I talked to one of my good friends. He said, look, your wife loves you very much, but she does not want you around the house all the time. You need to come find another job. And I said, yeah, I haven't found that yet. That thing I'm yet that passionate about. And he said, well, why don't you help me with my peanut butter company? And I looked at him, kind of tilted my head like a dog does when you're confused. And I said, you don't have a peanut butter company. He's like, yeah, but I want to have one. And then he walked me through the premise, which is the baseball players in the minor leagues especially eat a ton of peanut butter because it's cheap, it's high in protein, it's heat stable, so on a hot sunny day you don't actually get it all ruined like you would mayo or a ham and cheese sandwich. So these guys eat a ton of peanut butter, and they're forced to either eat the mass quantity produced stuff that has high fructose corn syrup and hydrogenated oils, or the really supposedly good for you stuff that tastes like dog food, that has oil on top, and it's
Right.
it's natural but it's gross. So he was tempted to try and find a good formula and then go out and market it to baseball. And he said, I need a CEO to come do it. And he mentioned that the other co-founder he wanted to bring in, Ross, who's a good friend of mine, is now the GM of the Blue Jays. So we had some pretty good ties to baseball. And it's pretty exciting for me. There was technically a promise they gave me way back when that I would get a minor league contract for like a one-day, $1 contract so I could be a pro ball player. That has yet to materialize, and sooner or later I'm going to have to squawk about that. But
Yeah.
For now, I'm still happily running this, and I was just in New York this week with Mike Lowell, the '07 World Series MVP.
Yeah, I know. We saw one of my good friends over here also works for me. She's a diehard fan, and I mentioned it. I started reading off the. I got to be honest. I'm kind of a fair weather fan. I'm just even with everybody. But I started reading off all the some of the founders and investors in your company. She knew them all, and I was like, obviously Mike Lowell and Beckett, and you get some big time Red Sox guys here. So
Marco was there too.
Yeah,
Marco Scudero,
yep.
and then Johnny Mack, John McDonald was there as well. So 4 of our 5 lead investors were former Red Sox players.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. How's it going right now for the home plate peanut butter?
So it's a lot of fun. We're way ahead of plan, which is great. What's the neat part about this too is that there's a lot of people in the grocery space who are baseball fans. So we can take them to the ballpark and we can show them our peanut butter in action, down in the clubhouse and the guys eating it, because we're in every major league ballpark. So no matter where the grocery chain is located or headquartered, we can get them to a ballpark and let them kind of experience that and see, oh, wow, it's not just a strange marketing tie-in. These guys actually do eat. The average major leaguer eats 2 PB&Js a day. And
I
it's just
had
kind of their
I had
thing.
no idea. I read about it obviously before we got on, and I played baseball up until my junior year when I got cut. By the way, we don't want to talk about that. But we didn't eat a lot of peanut butter. But it's more like
So
I'm trying to think.
it's
of
really the
sunflower
minor league
seeds.
guys. Yeah, sunflower seeds are big.
Right.
But when these guys are on a bus, and you think about it, these average guys, 6'2", 6'3", probably 240. They're growing boys, right? And they're making $800 a month is their standard take home, right? And so they got no money, and they're living out of hotel rooms, and you can't really have like a pound of ham or roast beef in your bat bag that sits in the truck all day.
Right.
So you're going to live with whatever you can. And the amount of guys that, eat peanut butter with their fingers, just jam in the jar and go, has been pretty high. So that's been a big piece for us to try and market to them. We've got a new squeeze pack, which is a 1.15 ounce, kind of small little squeeze pack, but it's like almost like goo, the racing gel, but it actually tastes good. It's our honey and peanut butter mix. And the idea was to market to them and play in that same kind of good for you but tastes good sweet spot.
Well, I can't wait to try it. I saw that you also have the peanut butter bites. I saw that someone made, and someone just commented on Periscope. Shauna, actually, I happen to know her pretty well. She said you should make peanut butter cups as well. She's a big peanut butter cup fan.
Well, Shauna, I appreciate that comment, and all I can tell you is keep your eyes peeled. We're working on something that's kind of like that, but a lot more awesome.
All right.
But much like that, and I don't want to go too far in depth, but we're not just a peanut butter company. We're working on a few other cool ideas, and it will be yummier than that, if you could imagine.
Wow, she's looking forward to it. So for someone like yourself, again, a lot of people I talk mostly to entrepreneurs, business people, and as an entrepreneur myself and a business owner, a lot of people don't see this side of it, but there's a lot of stress involved in owning a business, running a business, having employees and things of this nature, and making payroll and all these other things. Clint, what do you do outside of the business life to handle stress?
Well, it's funny because what I would say I do to handle stress often causes its own kind of stress, but I don't know if it's necessarily a totally different kind of stress or just a different way of looking at it. I love my family time. I've got 3 little kids, so I go to a lot of birthday parties and soccer games and that sort of thing. And then we try and spend a lot of time outside. So we're down here in Texas, so winter isn't too bad.
Right.
Whether it's sports or hunting or fishing or just doing outside activities with family is probably my favorite thing to do. And then I travel a good bit for work. So if I find myself in a new place, I'll try and experience the local flavor, whatever that may be. But it has to be something different. Even if that activity itself is stressful, it's a different kind of stress. It's still not firing somebody or hiring somebody or that kind of difficulty thing that a lot of people assume it's easy being the boss. Man, I've fired some bad people in my day, and even the worst person I've ever fired, it was still a terribly stressful, horrible day for me to do that. It's not fun. It's not a good thing to go through that. So
yeah, it's horrible. Nobody. I mean, yeah, I've done it obviously a few times. Not only you said some bad people, but I've had to let go some good people too. I'm sure you have as well. And people that have been with you for years, and they become your friends, right? And then letting them go, it's horrible.
Yeah, so and I think the part of it, like when you realize you're firing somebody, you're admitting too that it's partly your fault, right? You hired them, so it's partly on you because you made a mistake too. And yeah, the good people is clearly stressful, but even the people who you think, well, there's no way that's really a problem because they're not that great. No, it's still going to cause a great deal of stress for it. And sometimes just going out and sitting in a kid's soccer game and rooting for the 5-year-old not to kick his or her sister is important. It's good to just see him have fun out there. So that a different kind of stress, but a good stress reliever.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a little girl. She's 10, and I coach soccer, and for me, again, I think it's so much fun. And I think as I'm listening to you talking about hunting and fishing and birthday parties and soccer games, someone once said to me, Mike, sometimes you just have to be. And then I always hear other people say, you just have to be present. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. Even when you travel all over the country or even the world and experiencing these different things, you're just kind of like stepping back and enjoying the moment, right?
Yeah, you think about how lucky we are. I mean, everybody listening to this right now, I'm sure has days or weeks when they feel like they're having kind of a tough time. But generally speaking, we are all so incredibly lucky. We've got, more than enough food and shelter and great opportunities and experiences. And it's easy to get really bummed out about stuff, but it's really valuable to kind of take that step back and think, yes, there is a screaming baby in the plane next to me, but I am flying at 600 miles an hour and I'm going to be home to see my family tonight. And I'm not going to have to go home to that screaming baby, and life's pretty good. So I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I think you're right. I think we all need to remind ourselves of, like you said, of how lucky we are. And we all do. I mean, you do, I do, and, especially, and again, I know that you speak to businesses and other entrepreneurs, and we can, you and I or there's all these other people that have been on, we can all, kind of put ourselves on a pedestal and try and preach to other people how great the things we've done and the things we're doing. But we're human like everybody else, and if sometimes we have to say, hey, you know what, things aren't that bad, even though you got a screaming baby next to you, it's gonna get better, right?
Right, yeah, right, and I'm very good at missing that point too. So one of the reasons why I like to talk about it and remind people to do it is so that hopefully it rubs off, and I remind myself to do the same thing.
Exactly.
I'm by no means an expert in it, but I've found that when I am happiest and when I am least stressed out, it's when I do remember those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's great. So the next question I have is more of a kind of a fill in the blank, and it goes like this: if my company lacks blank, then we will not succeed, or if I lack blank, then I will not be successful.
So I thought this was kind of a restatement of the same point because both of my answers are pretty much exactly the same. If my company lacks the right people, then we will not succeed. Or if I lack quality employees, then I will not be successful.
Right.
And for me, it all comes down to taking myself out of the business and putting the right people in that place. So for me, hiring is a really, really important piece. I'm very careful about it. We're very slow to hire. We're very quick to let people go. In my old company, we would have a bit of a reputation for letting people go within the first week. And that was not because they were that bad. It was just the wrong fit. I'm more than happy to make the change if there's a hiring mistake, but you want the right people in, and then you just get the heck out of their way.
Right.
And that, to me, has been success in the simplest form, is letting really smart people. It's not too hard to find people smarter than me. It's pretty easy to do, but people who are experts in their field, and I just get out of the way and let them do what they do, and it provides me a much happier level of enjoyment in life.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the good to great philosophy, right? Get the right people on the bus, and if they're not the right people, get them off as quickly as you can.
Yeah, or maybe you can move them to a different seat if they're
right.
Wonderful people and just in the wrong seat. We've done that a few times too, but there's a culpability that goes on both sides. It's not, I love that people are really good at making fun of millennials and whatever the new craze is and complaining about work, but part of that comes down to a management piece too, and we all have culpability in that. So doing it the right way and with people in the right way is as much on us as anybody else.
Sure. Now, you'd mentioned the millennials. A lot of young people do listen to the podcast and do watch as well. Again,
I didn't say anything bad about them then.
No, well, you know what? Hey, don't be afraid, Clint. So we are on with Clint Greenleaf. He's an entrepreneur. He's a business person. He's an author. He's a father. He's started businesses. He's sold businesses. He's launching a new product right now called Home Plate Peanut Butter. He's really done a lot of different things. If you'd like some more information about Clint Greenleaf, you can go to clintgreenleaf.com. That's green like the color, and then leaf leaf.com. You'd mentioned millennials. Again, a lot of young people do listen. I have a lot of young people working for me. I know that even at your previous company, you had a lot of the younger generation working for you. What advice would you give young people right now that are in the workforce that are looking to grow?
Yeah, so I think the hardest part is the relation to people who don't necessarily see the world the same way. And I think we know this intuitively outside of the workforce, but for some reason there's a miss. So my best advice would be to think about this the same way you would your friends when you're trying to relate to your friends and you see the world a little bit differently than they do. The typical boomer boss or the typical even Gen X boss is not really into praise first. They're not really into the reward first. They want to see some sort of action. So if you know that you generally prefer to have praise, but your boss is kind of old school in that respect, put yourself on hold and give first. Take care of them first. Make sure they feel like they're being heard. Make sure they feel like they're getting what they want out of the working relationship first. And the great part is you don't have to be that great at it. You just have to be better than the average other person out there. So if the average millennial is asking for a promotion in the first week, and I know that's a bit of a overused comment, but when that is the way that some boomers look at it, you have such a huge freedom. If you can just go in there, put your nose down to the grindstone, work really hard for a little while, and prove that you're not the typical stereotype, you're able to get yourself a much better leg up on the competition. And I think that's really, it's not too hard to be successful. They say that in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed man is king. You don't have to be that different. You just have to be a little bit better than everybody else.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I agree with that 100%. Again, back to it's not necessarily the Y generation, but it's really anybody who's in business. One of the challenges that I see, and I think you've probably seen it as well when you're the CEO of Greenleaf is, but can you give me and the listeners and the viewers a secret strategy or business technique that makes you in your company more efficient? Because again, I think a lot of people I always say they're confused with activity versus accomplishment. What allows you to do all these things and be efficient?
So I think the only real way to leverage or to be really efficient, I think, is to get leverage, because we all have 24 hours in the day, and every once in a while you find the new tech tool that shaves 8 minutes off your day, and it's a great thing. But the real way to leverage your time and get real efficiency is to have the relationships. So for me, I like to think of it as kind of the four legs of the stool, and I think if you have the four most solid relationships, you have your customers, you have your vendors, your employees, and then you have your either investors or bosses. And all too often people focus on one of those pieces, right? They focus on their customers most often, or they focus on their employees, but they ignore their vendors. And I think vendors can be a huge value to your business. Or they just look at the investors and trying to keep them happy all the time. It's really a balance of all those. So for me, I think that the efficiency or the success that I've been able to have has been by levering those relationships. And taking care of people in their own space. If I have to put one first of those four, by the way, it's the employees. Because If I put my employees first, they're going to take care of everything else for me. They recognize that I have my failings. There are certain things that Clint does well, and there's a hell of a lot of them he does not. We can go ahead and fill the gaps of the things he doesn't do, and we can help out. But if you treat your employees poorly, your customers, your vendors, and your investors all find out about it. They all get upset about it, and you don't have any good employees. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I agree with that 100%. What I also like about that, when I think about starting a business, especially if you start a business with no money, but you have the relationships, those are really the things that are the most valuable. I had this guy Larry Benet on, and he calls himself the Great Connector. And one of the things
I love Larry. He's a good friend. He's a great guy.
I was going to tell you that in a second, because Larry, introduced me to Nolan Bushnell, who endorsed
Yep.
Ask More, Get More. He introduced me to Betsy Myers, who also endorsed Ask More, Get More. So I knew you guys knew each other, but what he said was, and when he talks about relationships, he calls it relationship capital, and I think too many people miss that. I mean, your relationships that you build are really, I mean, you just said it. They're like the most valuable thing you really have, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, this business got started because two guys who played baseball together professionally kept really good relationships within baseball.
Right.
One of my other co-founders was my insurance guy, and sold us our employee health care coverage for years. So I've known him for 12 years. I was able to then leverage people that I knew here in Austin who knew the food space. So the founder of Stubbs Barbecue Sauce is one of our advisors. And he runs a kale chip company now. So the relationships that we were all able to leverage together helped us build this brand kind of out of nothing with three knuckleheads who don't know very much about food, because we had those relationships. So it's not to be undervalued. And the vendor relationship too. I mean, again, people think vendors, you got to stick it to them. And I'm a big fan of the belief that vendors are not just for screwing anymore. You don't just want to try and take that extra 1% or 0.5% off of them, because they know so much. They work with your competition every day. They know exactly what works and what doesn't work. And if you treat them well, and I mean, imagine this, but next time you go to lunch with your banker, imagine if you pick up the tab.
Right.
First of all, you'll surprise the crud out of them. They won't be expecting it at all. But next, they'll sit back and say, oh, so you're not just here to get a free meal. Maybe there's a relationship here. How can I repay you for that? And it really changes the dynamic really quickly. I believe in the last 20 some odd years of business, I have not really had a chance to let a vendor pay more than probably 5% of the time. Usually I try and grab the check well before they have a chance. And part of that is just so they know I'm not taking advantage of them. I'm not trying to get something out of them, a free meal. The other part too is I'm a capitalist pig, and I realize they're going to repay me so much more than the $40 lunch that I just paid for.
Right.
So, in book printing, I had printers who would tell me, hey, look for this poker trend in 2002. As poker was picking up, we picked up a bunch of poker books because the printers told us to pay attention to it. And we were able to capitalize on some of the top poker books of the early part of that decade. So it's hugely valuable in that sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too. And when we look at it as well, you have vendors, and look, when you grow a business, like even with my business, you grow a business and sometimes you start to owe people money or whatever, all these other things. And a lot of people, they like to bury their head in the sand, and like you said, and they move on to the next vendor, and they, like you said, they screw these guys over. And what I've found, and it's everything you just said as well, is that these vendors, people, I don't like when people use the term partners. Oh, we want to be your partner. I don't buy into that, but what I do barely buy into is that they truly can help you, because if they help you become successful, then they'll become successful. I would say 75% of the business that we do here came from a referral from a vendor or someone else we do business with, right?
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then you've got these people who are able to now give you advice. And if you're having a bad time because you haven't been paid by one of your top customers, and you say, hey, I got a really bad day here. I have not been able to collect from this one guy, and it's really been really tough for me. They might say, are you kidding me? I play golf with that guy every week. Let me give him a call. I'll have it taken care of in no time.
Right.
Or they might say, oh, God, that's really hard. I know a lot of people have had struggled with that. Tell you what, I know you're net 30. Let's go ahead and make it net 60 while you get around on this. It's the lack of communication that causes so much difficulty. I think we know that in our personal lives, but
Sure.
When you look at it in business too, trying to hide from that doesn't work out. But having those relationships is awesome.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Clint, again, we are on with Clint Greenleaf. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying your name. Clint Greenleaf. You can find more information about Clint at clintgreenleaf.com. Again, he's an author. He's an entrepreneur. He just launched this awesome peanut butter, which I can't wait to taste because I'm a big peanut butter fan as well. It's home plate peanut butter. It's wholesome. It's nutritious. It's natural. It's really good stuff. It's got a great story to it as well. So, again, if you'd like some more information about Clint or his products, especially the home plate peanut butter, you can just visit clintgreenleaf.com. I'm going to skip over question 9 because we're running a little bit late. But number 10, I think a lot of people love this one. If you could leave, and you've given us great advice already, Clint, I really appreciate your time. But if you could leave our viewers and listeners with one piece of advice in business, in addition to all the other stuff you've already said, what would it be?
Well, my big takeaway in here is relationships, because you want to be able to do that. In order to try and not repeat myself too much, I would say that if you focus on the integrity of what you're doing, and that still plays back with the relationships too, but if you focus back on the integrity of your business and who you are as a person, almost everything else takes care of itself. If you have to go through the horror of firing somebody, if you've got to bring someone on and you say, hey, this is a startup, so you don't necessarily need to fake it and say, hey, we're going to be, $20 billion company someday. You can get up there and say, I'm not sure. I think we're going to make it. Obviously, I have my heart and soul invested in this, but there are some downside risks. So if this is a huge risk for you and your family and you can't take this risk, I get it. What usually happens when I have that conversation is people say, oh, no, I get it. I'm in. And then there's no question about it that everyone's on the same page and everyone's aligned for that same goal. I think primary is integrity on that, but it also comes back to the investment in a good relationship and the quality that can come from that.
I like that. I just want to follow up on one thing you said. What I really like, and I wrote down the word honesty as you were talking there as well, but I also love what you said. It's, as entrepreneurs like us, we're like the eternal optimists, but I think too many business people and even entrepreneurs are to the point where they're so optimistic that they're unrealistic. And so what you just were kind of saying is there, hey, let's lay it all out there. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Right, and the great part is it's very freeing. When you open up and you say, look, here's the thing. We are waiting on a very big thing to come through. And if it doesn't come through, we're kind of toast. But if it does come through, it's going to be great. Then you don't have to try and work around that. A good friend of mine was the CEO of 800 Contacts when they launched. And during their IPO, they were actually illegal in all 50 states. Oh. So in their actual K-1 documents, because it was tied to the legality of of the way the optometrist society had to buy them from a doctor's office.
Right.
So he literally inside the K-1 said, technically, our business model is illegal in all 50 states. He was very upfront and very honest about it. And it was an awesome IPO because people said, okay, I bear that risk. I'm cool with it. Yeah, it might not work out, but I'm open to it. So from an investor standpoint, from an employee standpoint, from a vendor standpoint, be willing to be more honest than you think you should be, because generally speaking, people really value that. I think there's a little bit too much of protecting and trying to guard ourselves, and people can smell that. They might not know what you're protecting them from, but when they fill in the blanks, it's never as good as the actual truth is. So.
That's awesome. That's a great way to end it. Folks, again, if you've been watching or listening, we've been on with Clint Greenleaf. We're here at Blue Vase Studios. This is the Alden Report, and this is the type of information that I love giving out to the people. Talking to gentlemen like Clint Greenleaf and others that we've had on, these are real people doing real things, making real money, making real businesses, making real mistakes, and they're learning from it. And the information that he's provided us, and even with me, is just really, it's so valuable. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to Clint. Again, if you'd like some more information about Clint Greenleaf, you can visit his website at clintgreenleaf.com. You can just Google him. He's out there. And also definitely check out his peanut butter at homeplatepeanutbutter.com. I know you can get it on Amazon because someone just said on Periscope that they just bought it as well. So I'm looking forward to trying it again. My name is Michael Alden. This is the Alden Report, and we'll see you next time. The preceding episode was brought to you by Home Plate Peanut Butter. If you're a fan of peanut butter like me, you're going to love Home Plate Peanut Butter. It's all natural, zero preservatives, no high fructose corn syrup, no hydrogenated oils, non-GMO, gluten-free, and it tastes amazing. So if you want all the wholesome benefits of peanut butter like me, but not all the junk, then go to homeplatepb.com and give it a try. Folks, there's no goopy oil layer. It's not chalky. It's just wholesome, all natural, great tasting peanut butter. It comes in 3 amazing flavors: crunchy, honey, and my favorite, good old creamy. So visit homeplatepb.com. That's homeplatepb.com.